Okay, thank you. That was the first analyst. The second sits next to you, Dr. Ehab, Farah, and are very interested in your views. Can you please also explain a bit about your history and what you're doing today?
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. First, just a few words about the Arab sector, just continuing on what Itzik said. For those who don't know, there's a 20% Arab minority inside Israel. This minority economically is not represented in terms as it is in terms of the population. In other words, if I can rephrase, the Arab minority in Israel is overrepresented when it comes to the negative parameters. Like, for example, they represent only 13% of the workforce, and when it comes to those who live under the line of poverty, it's over 40%. But when we look at the positive parameters, like how many of the Arab members of the Arab minority are in the high-tech sector, for example, it's less than 3%. If we look at the percentage of the contribution to Israel's GDP, it's less than 8%, and we're talking about a 20% of the population. This at some point created the idea of the fund that I'm a partner with, which is called Al-Bawadir. It was established in 2010 with the idea of, we're talking about cloning what happened in Israel in the early 90s, the Yozma, where the government said to venture capital funds like Pitango and the others, we're going to match up to certain amounts of government funding. You go and create the startup nation. And that's how these funds began their way, using government money, and then from Fund 2 and so forth, they began raising capital without the need of the government funding. Well, this idea was presented to the government in 2010 to create a fund basically that's focused on investing in the Arab minority of Israel. And it took some attraction, and the government committed 80 million shekels, and Pitango, who won the tender, was able to raise another roughly 100 million shekels. So we have a $50 million fund focused on investing in the Arab minority in Israel. We've made 7 investments up until now, and I think the idea itself was it was a great idea. Hopefully, we're looking to see this trend continue. Funds like Takween have been created afterwards, and hopefully this trend will continue in the future. In terms of my background, just very quickly, I'm a lawyer, but practiced for 10 years in Israel and then moved to the United States, where I went through the corporate tax program at the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor, studied for a second degree and wrote a doctorate thesis, worked a lot with venture capital funds, representing them in the US, which is where the connection comes, and had the opportunity when I decided to move back really to find my way into Al-Bawadir. Now, just to be clear, it's a for-profit fund. I mean, the mission at the end of the day is to generate revenues for the investors. But you have, beside the mission, you have also a vision where we're trying to create a situation where the Arab minority in Israel is part of the startup nation. And so if you can make profit and at the same time have a social impact, that's win-win from our perspective. In terms of Rocket Internet, I think I totally agree with what Itzik's saying in terms of the cloning. I know them from outlet media reports. Definitely they're doing a good job, and I guess a lot of investors think they are because they're able to raise so much money. But the cloning, I think, is the localization when it comes to cloning is a very important factor. I agree with Itzik. In terms of what we've seen, it just so happened that we identified a need in the Arab-speaking market, in the MENA market, which has over 350 million Arabic speakers, and over 120 million are now connected to the internet. And what we've been able to identify is a huge lack in the content. If you look at the average ratios of websites to population. In the world, it's 1 to 10. In the English-speaking world, it's 1 to 3, so every 3 people on average have a website. In the Arabic market, it's less than 300. So there's a huge need for creating 6-7 million websites at least to close that gap. Looking at the region's need and looking at the entrepreneurs that we've invested in, as a VC fund, we saw an opportunity. And by the way, one thing I just want to mention about Al-Bawadir, we work as any other venture capital fund. We look at the team, we look at the potential for an exit, high growth. The only one thing that we have, the only limitation that we have is that we can invest in companies that at the time of the investment are at least 50% owned by a minority Arab in Israel. But the market is huge. These entrepreneurs address a market of over 350 million Arabic speakers. Now, the advantage that they have is that they're growing and living in a developed ecosystem which they can leverage. And at the same time, better than anybody else, they understand the culture and the mindset of the region that they're addressing. So in terms of cloning, we've actually invested in portfolio companies in the internet area where they're doing a lot of similar things that have been done by multinational players, localizing it to meet the needs of the region itself. But they're very similar. The idea has been proven, and yeah, we took the idea and we went on forth with it.
Thank you. Good to hear. We have, that is Arab entrepreneurs in a way, and Dr. Abdullah Malik Al-Jaber calls the firm that he represents Arab Renewal. And so that title has been taken, and very much interested in hearing what you're doing, where are the differences, and what are your future prospects. And is Rocket Internet a partner for you, a potential?
Thank you. Arab Noor is a new word in the dictionary, the English dictionary. It's a merger between Arab entrepreneur. So we sliced part of the entrepreneur and then we put it together so it became Arabpreneur. It could mean the light, it could mean entrepreneurship, but it's all positive meanings. Where I come from is a little bit different, my colleagues mentioned about Takween and Bawadir, where there were money available from the government, and there's an ecosystem in Israel with chief scientists, with a heavy budget, with the grants up to 85%, and VC funds, and a USMA that's almost 10 years old. Also, the experience in Holland with SPC and VC funds and seed funds. Well, the situation is a little bit more difficult and different. Palestine, the situation, if you want to be diplomatic, is not a normal situation, where you don't have, even though thanks to DLD they recognize it as a full country, they say Palestine, so at least this is just a word. It doesn't have really the full meaning of a country, because maybe you'll be shocked. Until now, there's no 3G, not allowed in the Palestinian territories in Palestine. So you only have GSM, which means there is a lot of limitations on the internet. And as you know, without full access to internet, technology cannot really function. That's a major limitation when it comes to technology. Now, you don't have a functioning government in terms of budget, in terms, they barely can pay the salaries for the employees, and thanks to the EU, they put a lot of money in terms of direct support to the budget of the government to pay the salaries. So, the situation is a little bit very challenging. And when you want to start with building an ecosystem for entrepreneurship or startups, all the elements to make it successful that are usually available in any country, pick a country, Turkey, Jordan, Israel, wherever, they're not there. So the only way you could start is a crazy way, which what we did 3 years ago. We decided to go into this direction and start investing in startups. If you go 4 or 5 years ago in the Arab world and you say an angel investor, that term did not exist. People would not understand what an angel investor means. If you say startup, if you say an angel network, I mean, all these terms are quite recent and quite new. So to go and bring some seed funding to startups, that looked like an impossible mission. And to get money from governments, that's also not the case. So we started building our own ecosystem. We had our own physical place with our own money, private money. And we started building the whole ecosystem from scratch, even paying and covering the costs that are usually the government responsibility in terms of the incubation process, in terms of the support ecosystem that usually comes from a chief scientist or a ministry of youth or whatever, or a donor. When we started, we did all of that from our own pockets. At a later stage, we started having some support from donors, mainly USAID, GIZ, and other partners. Now we are talking also to some Dutch partners and Swedish partners who are supporting the parts that are government responsibility. But the process has been extremely successful. We have invested until now into 15 startups. I would dare to say that the 15 startups that we have are considered today the creme of entrepreneurship and startups in the Arab world, covering payments, social media, education, business intelligence, platforms for all kind of mobile apps, what we call smart solutions. And our target market, the business model that we have is very simple. We are creating kitchens, and we know that the kitchens that we are creating are to basically cater for the real market. The real market is not where the kitchens are. The kitchens that we have are in Jordan, in Palestine, and we are doing one in Morocco, and we have another kitchen in Canada. I'm Canadian as well. But the target market is the Gulf region. It's not really Jordan or Palestine or Egypt for that matter. The real market where the purchase power and the figures that Dr. Ehab talked about in terms of internet penetration, in terms of smartphone penetration, in terms of purchase power, smartphone penetration in the Gulf is 85%. It's way higher than Europe and higher than the US. If you talk about games, online games, Saudi Arabia is the largest single market in terms of how much money they spend on the online games. So this is the real market, and the purchase power is high, and this is our target market. What do we do? Very simple. We have a full ecosystem where we have a physical space, which is our building. We have that in Amman, we have that in Ramallah, we have it in Dubai, and we have it in Canada. And as I said, soon we're having that in Morocco. So we provide a full physical space for the startups, fully equipped in terms of the mentorship network, in terms of legal support, in terms of financial auditing. PricewaterhouseCoopers, they're our partners. We have the largest law firm as our partner in the region. So basically, we provide the startups with all what they need in terms of the support. Of course, we do what we call real lifetime mentorship. We have a network of mentors from around the region. We have 50 mentors from Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Dubai, Kuwait, etc. All these mentors, they have a vested interest in the startups. We give equity for the mentors, and at the same time, these mentors occupy senior positions where they are, so they help us in the third task, which is door opening doors for these startups to basically make deals and meet potential customers. And of course, we invest. Our ticket is in the range of $200,000 to $220,000, but sometimes we invest more than $200,000. We go to $300,000 and $400,000. We did invest $300,000 or $400,000 in some startups. And the most important offering we have in our ecosystem is our hub in Dubai. Each startup that goes through our system automatically gets a free zone registration in Dubai. They get visas, they get an office, and they get a full team, a full functioning team out of Dubai to help them penetrate the Gulf market. That includes events, functions, meetings, information, introductions, logistics, all what they want, so that startup would not have to worry about, you know, I want to have a meeting in Doha or a meeting in Riyadh. They will arrange all of this for the startups, and they will always watch what's happening, what are the new initiatives, what are the new projects. Just to give you a small idea of the potential, in Dubai, there are three initiatives that just been launched. First, the Emir of Dubai, the Sheikh of Dubai, announced Dubai as a smart city and smart government, and he wants to have Dubai as the smartest city and the smartest government globally. And trust me, he will do that. Second, he wants Dubai to be the hub of Islamic finance. You have more than 1 billion Muslims, and there's not really such a hub for Islamic finance. So he wants to make Dubai as a hub for Islamic finance. And they have the Expo 2020, which they just won. And they are also talking about the Olympiad, which is beyond the Expo 2020. So these are three major initiatives that would require humongous amount of innovative solutions and ideas and startups. So in terms of the demand, it's amazing. Basically, you need a super highway of all these startups to really fulfill the needs that are in one market, which is Dubai. Plus, of course, that will open the door for the rest of the Arab countries. I think our focus is still investing in Arab startups, including, by the way, we're investing in Arab Israelis. We have Arab Israeli startups, and we have also Palestinian startups. We have Jordanian startups. We have Egyptian startups. So we are investing in Arabic startups, not only Palestinian startups. But our target is Arab innovators, Arab smart kids that we plug them into the Arab Noor ecosystem. Thank you.
Thank you. That was an interesting insight into an area that's, I guess, often overlooked. All of us wouldn't sit today here without Laszlo. Laszlo was having the idea, and then on the other hand, it's no surprise. Like the country that produced Rubik's Cube, and which people say if you go to a wheeling door is like the only one who can enter behind you and leave before you, he must be Hungarian. I'm sure Laszlo could demonstrate that. And in 2011, he created the idea of the EU Israel Innovation Summit. And that was, at that time, I thought, very daring and bold innovation. Because on the one hand, you had this sparkling intelligence, well-educated population, lots of full new ideas, bright hopes, globally interested. And on the other hand, you had Europe vested into all technologies, into a deep crisis. But you have said this morning, the usual career is big firm, small firm, not for profit. In a crisis, the big firms are usually not available. So if a country is in a crisis, I always say, take a second look, because these are the best opportunities. So go and invest now into Greece. Go and invest now into other countries that are struggling, because the young people, the potential, the entrepreneurs, they will come out now, and they are ready to shine. Not all of them will leave, but they are ready to invest into. So I'm very interested into Laszlo, who in 2011 thought of this brilliant event. What is the future, and does Rocket Internet have a future? Will there be a EU, Israel, North American, US triangle? And will that be exclusive? How is the world going to look like, the VC world in 2020, 2025?